So, hello. Thanks for the great introduction again, Max. Yeah, let's talk about marijuana and empathy and the enhancement of empathy, which is really an interesting issue to talk about. I would like to start with a story that I read in a book from William Novak. It's from around 1980, High Marijuana in the Lives of Americans. And it's a story from a human psychologist who takes on a patient, or who took on a patient, and he wrote that he would usually not smoke or use cannabis for to actually sit down with his patients. But one day he smoked cannabis in the evening, and he got an emergency call from a patient. And he talked to the patient for more than an hour on the phone, even though he felt uncomfortable, but you know, it was an emergency, he had to do it. And the next day he met the patient, or the next week he met the patient, and she said to him, you know what, I would like to pay the hour on the phone. And he said, no, you don't have to do that. That was just an emergency call, and you don't have to pay for that. But she said, no, you were especially sensitive, and I really want to pay there. And he understood himself that he understood her emotions. He empathically understood what she was saying better while he was high. So I find that remarkable, because here is an expert who is treating people, a therapist, psychotherapist, and who doesn't even believe in the enhancement of empathic understanding, and still there is this result. He's accidentally gets high, and then a patient comes back to him and says, "Wow, that was remarkable. That really you helped me there a lot." I think that we generally underestimate how important empathy and empathic understanding is in our lives. It is, of course, of crucial importance for your relationships, for your love relationships, for your love life, understanding your children, understanding your partners, your friends. Of course, it is also important at your work. If you work with, you need to be able to deal with coworkers, you need to be able to make contracts, you need to be able to understand how different people are and how they work. So this is important. Empathic understanding is crucially important to how we manage to live our lives, how we manage our relationships, how we grow in our relationships, and cannabis can crucially help you with that. So first, we really need to acknowledge how important empathic understanding is. We have a lot of feedback from people and detailed stories from people who tell us how actually their empathic understanding during a high, how they got better, how they felt that it enhanced their ability to understand other people. And I want you, in that class, I want for you to go out here or to take away from that class to be able to understand better how you can use cannabis to enhance your empathic understanding, and to generally use it in your lives to personally grow, but especially to help your relationships, to help your love life, to help to come to a new understanding of your partner. And it is important to know that we cannot just smoke or use cannabis and it works. It's not like you cannot push a button, use more or less, and you're fine. You really need to know what you're doing with cannabis. Also, I want to talk a little bit about cannabis and autistic children, and cannabis and people on the autistic spectrum disorder, on the autistic spectrum, because we have seen in the last years that it helps them tremendously, and I think there is also a deep misunderstanding of how it actually helps them, because it helps them in a more interesting sense than it's usually reported in the media or news. So let me say something basic about empathy first. A lot of people think empathy as sympathy. You know, it's like, okay, if I empathize with somebody, he seems more sympathetic. That's not what it is. Empathic understanding, when I'm talking about empathic understanding, I really mean your ability to describe, predict, and explain the behavior, feelings of other people. So if you are empathically understanding your kids better, or your partner better, you're able to some degree describe, you know, how they work, how they function, to predict what they're going to do in a certain situation, and to explain for yourself also, you know, why they're doing this, where they're coming from, which is a very complex ability. Empathic understanding is based on a lot of cognitive skills, which will help you to make you a better husband, make you a better negotiator, make you a better father, a better son. And I want you to understand that this complex ability is affected on various levels by the enhancements that you get out of a cannabis plant if you're doing it right. Now, let's look into the complexity of empathic understanding and how various cognitive skills add up to actually give you the complex skill of empathically understanding other people. This rests on a whole array of cognitive abilities. Now let's look into just 4 of them. There is, for instance, look at episodic memory retrieval, which is needed for empathic understanding. What is episodic memory retrieval? Technical term. It's basically your ability to remember events, to remember episodes from your past. Now, let's say you remember an episode, let's say you remember an episode about being a teenager, being grumpy all the time, or, you know, getting off, like being nervous, being insecure all the time. Let's say you're dealing with your teenage daughter at breakfast, and you're saying something to her, and she gets off, she gets angry about something, and you think about, oh God, what did I say? You know, how did that make her so mad? And you don't get it. You know, you're like, that happens like once a week, you know, for a month, and you're like, I don't know, you know, what am I saying? Now, if you remember, you know, yourself better, how you felt when you were a teenager, you're going to be like, oh, I was just generally grumpy. I was just, my hormones were going off, and it was not really about what my dad or my mom said to me, but I was just generally very aggressive, nervous, anxious, etc. And that might help you. So this episodic memory might help you to remember or to empathically understand your daughter now better. So episodic memory retrieval is absolutely crucial very often to understand people in their situation. Somebody's going through a breakup. If you remember better how you felt during your divorce, you will be better able to understand that person during a breakup very easily. Now, pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is absolutely crucial on various levels for empathic understanding. Think about, first of all, think about patterns in behavior, nonverbal behavior. The way I'm standing, you know, sad, depressed. The way somebody's walking, you know, you can see his character, he's like full of himself. Or the way or facial expressions. You can pick up nuances of feelings, of moods, and facial expressions of how somebody reacts towards you. That all is pattern recognition. Facial expressions, postures, the way somebody walks, tone of voice. So, am I saying something aggressively to you? Am I saying something silently to you? How am I using my voice? You pick up a lot of subtle clues, and what you need for that is pattern recognition. Like I said, on various levels. To empathically somebody else, you have to be able to really attend to a lot of patterns in his behavior, etc., and in his nonverbal behavior to be able to really get at what somebody is feeling right now and how somebody is reacting to you. Another important cognitive ability you need to have is imagination. So let's just think of somebody who's falling off a roof and he's holding on to the edge of it, and he's like, it's 15 feet up in the air, and you want to understand how this guy feels, what you do basically is you put yourself imaginatively in his position. What would I do? What would I feel if I would hang off a roof and, you know, look down and I'd know, wow, if something breaks or if I let go, I'm gonna die here. So you can feel the panic yourself. You can imagine the panic somebody's going through, the fears somebody's going through. So imagination is an absolutely crucial cognitive ability for you to understand other people. What would I do in his situation? How would things look from that perspective? If I were in a race car at that speed and something would explode in front of me, how would I react? What would I do? And what can I infer from that about his behavior? So imagination, we have now episodic memory, and pattern recognition on various levels, and imagination, which are all important cognitive skills to have in place, and which are, most of them are just subconsciously working when you empathically understand somebody else. Let's get to one more cognitive ability, which is the introspective access to your own feelings. Now, if you don't have access to your own feelings, if you can't describe how you feel, if you're detached from your own feelings, you won't be able to understand the feelings in others. So you need introspective access, meaning you need to be able to understand yourself better to understand other people's emotions better. Now, the interesting thing about all that is that all of these cognitive skills that I just named have been reported to be enhanced during a high by, I'd say, hundreds of users. In detailed reports, they have told us that their episodic memory retrieval is enhanced. They are better able to remember detailed episodes in their lives that come up vividly, inclusively, the feeling of, how did I feel at my 8th birth or at my graduation party? The pride again of having achieved that, and you know, during a high, some people can really, in incredibly detail, describe to you how certain episodes, how certain events felt to them, and how they perceived the details. Imagination. Or no, let's go first to pattern recognition. We have so many reports about pattern recognition being enhanced, the process of pattern recognition being enhanced during a high. You wouldn't believe it. People see new things. People are able to imagine melodies. They come up with compositions. They are able to imagine tastes, smells. And while they're high, and the more they get high, the more their imagination gets sparked. So this is definitely something that gets enhanced during a high. Now, and the introspective access is something that also gets a lot enhanced. Many people have told us that when they were high, they had introspective insights about themselves. They felt like they're more connected to their feelings, and they are more tuned into their own emotions, which allows them then to empathically understand others better. So if we want to understand the enhancement of empathic understanding better, we have to look at all those enhancements and all those changes in cognitive abilities from a high to see how they add up. And then, you know, we have all those reports there, and then we have reports from people who are actually talking directly about their enhancements of empathic understanding, how they felt like they were telepathically tuned into others while they were talking to them, how they were able, as a teacher, got high, they were able for the first time to understand their kids better, or their students better. And so there are a lot of reports about that. And I think by looking at the components and the distinctive cognitive abilities being enhanced, like imagination, we can come to understanding better of how a high can enhance the complex ability of empathic understanding. Now, it is a very complex ability, and you need to be aware of the fact that a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, for me actually, I felt like I was too introspective. I couldn't concentrate on somebody else while I was high. For me, it didn't work at all. For instance, I had sex with with somebody, and I felt like I'm detached. I'm only thinking, I can't perceive her. I couldn't think about myself. That happens too. For instance, if you overdose. So you need to be able like I always say, again, the mantra is like to ride a surfboard. It's like cannabis is a great tool, but you need to be able to find out, like with a surfboard, you need to learn how to use it as a tool. Cannabis, you need to be able to use the right dosage, the right strains, to be in the right environment and mood, to be able to actually come to those enhancements. They don't come automatically. Generally, I would I recommend, again, like I do, again, that's a mantra, is avoid CBN. Try to avoid CBN, which is a degradation product of THC. People use degraded marijuana a lot. They use marijuana that has been harvested too late. They store it in the wrong way. They let air touch it a lot, and they leave it exposed to heat. So that is often, that gets you a more confusing high. You're getting more sedated, you're getting tired, and the effect on your mind is that you're not as clear. You cannot think that straight, you cannot keep your thoughts together, and which so then actually takes back some of the positive effects you might get for your empathic understanding. So make sure you're using fresh marijuana. Make sure that you get the dosage right, which is very important. If you overdose, you might be, for instance, getting great imaginations. You might lie there and be like, wow, I can imagine things better. But you might not be as empathic anymore because you're not able on that level to surf your high, so to say, to ride your high, to be able to communicate with other people in real time, which is a detrimental effect on your empathic understanding. So finding the right dosage for yourself, of course, is absolutely crucially important for your ability to then empathically engage with other people. So the right set and setting in that aspect is especially important. By set, I mean your own moods, your own character needs to be taken into account. Do I take cannabis when I'm in a really bad mood, when I'm depressed or something? That might actually affect how you deal with other people, how you actually look at other people, how you understand other people. So you need to find out for yourself when is it good for me to actually get high and to start engaging with other people empathically. The setting, of course, is of absolute crucial importance here, because if you, for instance, have people present who you don't like, who are annoying, where you feel like you don't want to connect at all, you might retrieve because you're like, gee, why am I here? I'm at this party, everybody's so stiff, and I want to stay away from them. And then in the end, you might not end up doing any empathic understanding at all because you just want to be like away from them. So choose your setting right. Be aware of who you are with. The setting is very important. It's not only the lighting or being in nature, which is important, also, do you feel comfortable there? It's really important who you are with. Of course, you can have empathic understanding being alone. You can just think about your relationships and people you engage with if you're alone and have empathic insights. But like I said, just be aware of who you are with, that you don't retrieve, and you don't come to just being introspective or just not wanting to engage in any social communication at all. Also, it's important to think about the activities you're in. I mean, your habits. If you're just smoking or using cannabis for playing a computer game or ego shooter game, we will probably not have much of an empathic understanding there. So it's really crucially important to think about, to plan your high a bit, and maybe to value your high in a different way, and to say, okay, I'm not gonna sit down and just play a game or watch television, but I'm gonna talk to people, I'm gonna engage in conversations, I'm gonna think about my relationship. Of course, that's of crucial importance. Let me say something now about people on the autistic spectrum. That is absolutely fascinating. With all this, and this is how I started out looking at it. I started out looking at the enhancements of empathic understanding in everybody, you know, actually I experienced them myself, and then I looked into the literature and found reports like the one I began with from William Novak in his book. And later only, like that was after 2009, there were reports coming up about autistic children being treated with cannabis. And I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding here, like there's a misunderstanding about empathy and sympathy. So people don't understand how complex that ability is, and they just think of empathy in terms of that it's like sympathy or something. And with autistic children, I think a lot of people reduce the effect. They have heard or they understand that something positive is happening for autistic children, and that they get more calm and more relaxed and less aggressive. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, and that's really, really important to understand. I have looked through a lot of reports from very, very perceptive parents from autistic children, and the interesting thing is that they, in detail, report about enhancements of empathic understanding of their children, how they're suddenly taking like an 8-year-old son who's strongly autistic, not able to speak, and usually would avoid looking at his parents, and would not be able to very much socially connect to others. And it seems that when medicated with marijuana during a high, or sometimes autistic children don't even seem to be high. They take high THC strains, but they don't seem to be like high like we are. But they suddenly start to emotionally and empathically engage in behaviors that are unseen before for their cases. They start looking their parents straight in the eye. They start smiling instead of aggressively attacking their brothers or sisters. They start hugging and engaging into really behaviors that that are absolutely stunning. And so I would like to read to you a report of a father of an 8-year-old autistic son. 30 minutes after giving him a dosage of marijuana, this father writes, his behavior became relaxed and far less anxious than he had been at the time we gave him the medical cannabis. He started laughing for the first time in weeks. My wife and I were astonished with the effect. It was as if all the anxiety, rage, and hostility had been haunting him melted away. That afternoon and evening, his behavior was steady and calm. He started talking to us and interacting with us again. Sam was physically more relaxed and began initiating physical contact, with the motivation being affection instead of aggression. It was amazing. Here's another report from the mother of a prominent mother now of an autistic son, Myung OK Lee. And she wrote about the effects of medical marijuana on her severely autistic son, Jay. The experts don't live in my house, nor do they get to reap the rewards like this morning when Jay woke up, smiled, and wanted a hug. The boy who formerly woke us with a scream of pain. The boy who, since he was 3 years old, never gave us hugs or let himself be hugged because he couldn't bear to be touched. Fittingly, the next person he bestowed a hug was Organic Guy, his grower. Now, when he's proud of something, like his awesome bike riding skills, he glances to find my face to make sure I'm looking. So I wanted to leave you with that, just a short look at how cannabis can enhance the empathic understanding of autistic children, and that being really an enhancement of the complex skills we all know from ourselves, looking at people, emotionally getting a connection, looking at the patterns, looking at where people, at their eyes, at their smiles, and interpreting them. And that seems to happen with autistic children as well, which is, to some degree, a miracle. It's not all the autistic, parents of autistic children will tell you it's not a miracle cure. It's not like they're completely normal. But the steps they're taking are really, really interesting, and they actually confirm again that marijuana can be absolutely crucial to the enhancement, or cannabis high can be crucial to the enhancement of empathic understanding. I want to leave you with just again, I want to stress that it is a potential. The empathic understanding is potentially enhanced by a cannabis high if you're using it correctly. Dosage, the strains also make a difference. You will have to look into what is good for you. You will have to experiment yourself with it. The environment, the set and setting, all these are crucially important because the complex skill of empathic understanding can break down at various levels, and there can be various factors. Like I said before, there are some people present you don't like, and you go like, oops, I don't even want to deal with that, which can actually lead to a situation where a cannabis high can make you oversensitive or something, and then you retrieve and you don't have any of that. You will have a lot of reports, a lot of people telling you that a cannabis high didn't make them more empathic, but it made them, more introspective, and people didn't want to think about things anymore. Also in a relationship or when they were lovemaking, so that they felt too introspective. That happens, so you need to really learn how to use this potential, because it's a potential. It's not automatism. It's not like you're taking cannabis in some form and then you're fine. That is very important, and I hope that I have researched this for a long time, and I hope I can give you clues to actually use cannabis for an enhancement. It's a magnificent tool. If you use it correctly, it's an amazing tool to enhance your relationships, to enhance your understanding of your coworkers, of your children, of your partners, of your friend, to actually make progress in your life and to personally grow. And that is what I'm trying to do, and what I'm trying to give you on your way with this course also, to help you to personally grow, to develop your relationships with cannabis, but you need to use it correctly, and you need knowledge and skills to be able to do that.